Discover 3 spine-chilling forest hiking stories exposing sinister secrets and cursed campgrounds. Amy felt a mix of excitement and dread as she packed the car for their family trip to Autumn Grove Campground. The reputation of the woods had shadowy whispers, a history of hikers who vanished without a trace. A malevolent spirit, they said, cursed careless wanderers. But Amy pushed the fear aside, wanting nothing more than to reconnect with her kids, Jake and Lily. She believed in adventure, not the superstitions that plagued Maplewood. As they drove, the trees loomed, cradling the road in a green embrace. A faded sign appeared, warning in jagged letters to tread lightly. Amy shrugged it off as local folklore, keen to infuse her children's spirits with joy. Yet doubt nipped at the edges of her mind. They pulled into their campsite, excitement bubbling. Yet an unease settled around them, thick as the forest air. Fellow campers eyed them with strange familiarity, greeting with smiles that felt too wide. The laughter hung like a fog, pressing against Amy's skin. Things began to spiral when Lily, her bright spirit unwavering, ventured towards a gnarled tree bearing scars of names. Children who had come before, now only echoes. The innocent curiosity in Lily's voice sent shivers down Amy's spine. Among those names were whispers she could almost hear, warnings curling in the cold breeze. A heavy silence blanketed their campsite, turning spirited chatter into cautious glances. Amy felt the distance between her and her children grow palpable, the forest watching like a predator sharpening its claws. As dusk painted the sky, the cheerful campers turned strange, their gentle smiles warped into predatory gazes, an unsettling tension pouring in with the night. The sound of the crackling campfire seemed to fade against the background of hushed whispers about guardians and curses, tales tinged with an undercurrent of fear. For a moment, false security wrapped around them, but Amy's pulse quickened. The shadows seemed to shift, creeping closer. Then a shriek shattered the night, a genuine sound of terror flaring from within the woods. Amy's heart raced. The campers' eyes flickered with a shared understanding, horrified and exhilarated at the same time. Was this some twisted ritual? Her grip on Jake and Lily tightened as dread clawed at her throat. The woods thickened, every rustle an ominous whisper, every snapped twig a warning. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can, leave a like. It really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Frantically, Amy led them toward their tent, every instinct screaming danger. Shadows danced and flickered at the forest's edge, but the campers remained rooted in twisted camaraderie, sharing glances that spoke of unspoken horrors. Panic surged in Amy. This was not a simple family getaway. It was a stage for a dark game she had unwittingly stepped into. As she and her kids sank into the tent, the chilling realization swallowed her whole. They were ensnared in something monstrous, and the woods were alive with secrets that hungered for the careless. Would they become just another tale among the names carved into the tree? The tent felt suffocating. The air was thick with dread, each breath a competition against the tightening grip of panic. Jake fidgeted, his youthful curiosity battling fear. "Mom, are we safe?" Her heart sank at his question. What was safety anymore? Outside, the shadows twisted and turned, pooling outside their fragile shield like dark liquid eyes, watching, waiting. "Just stay close," she whispered, the tremor in her voice betraying her resolve. The laughter and cheers of the other campers had dimmed, replaced by the unsettling silence that blanketed the forest, thick and heavy. A sudden rustle from outside broke the heavy stillness. Amy's breath caught in her throat. "Did you hear that?" she asked, her voice barely a murmur. "Yeah," Lily whispered, her voice small. It sounded like... Before she could finish, the tense fabric shuddered as if something pressed against it. Amy's heart raced. "Everyone, stay quiet." They huddled together, breathless, the sound of deep, ragged breathing mingling with the rustle of leaves. The figure that loomed outside wasn't human. Shadows sliced through the darkness, pulsing in rhythmic movement. Suddenly, the campers erupted in insane laughter, their voices cascading into the night. It was discordant, taunting, every syllable dripped with malice. "Join us," someone shouted into the abyss. "The night is just beginning." Amy's mind spiraled. What were they part of?
Reality felt frayed, suspended in an eerie limbo. She pressed her ear to the ground. Voices crept closer, indistinct but urgent. A collective chant emerged, pulling at the fabric of night like a siren's call. "What's going on?" Jake's voice broke through, laced with fear that made Amy's stomach churn. "I don't know," she replied, forcing her voice to remain steady. "Stay hidden. Don't move." A shadow darted past the tent. Amy felt a chill creep up her spine. It was like being hunted. Every instinct screamed to run, but they were trapped, caught in this web of madness. Then she heard it, a low, guttural growl. It resonated deep, vibrating the ground beneath them. Amy's pulse quickened, the blood rushing in her ears as she struggled to think. "Lily," she whispered, "you have to stay quiet, okay?" Lily nodded, her wide eyes reflected pure terror.
The growl morphed into a whisper, chilling and intimate. "They will join us soon." The world outside their tent exploded into chaos. Screams blended with the howls of laughter, becoming a horrific symphony. "What do we do?" Jake asked, his voice trembling. With an urgency she hadn't felt before, Amy gazed around their dim surroundings. "We need to get to the car, now." The thought of facing the woods was paralyzing, but they couldn't remain in this tent, surrounded by those who had surrendered to the madness. Heart pounding, she unzipped the tent flap just a sliver, peeking out. The scene was horrific. Figures danced around a fire, their bodies distorted and feverish, honor-bound to something dark and sinister. "On 3, she said, resolutely, summoning every ounce of bravery. 1, 2, 3. With that, they flung the tent open and bolted into the glaring night, the air thick with desperation. Amidst the blinding chaos, shadows reached out like claws, eager for their flesh. As they sprinted toward the car, Amy glanced back, fear searing through her. The campers were coming, and their twisted grins shone bright in the firelight. "Faster," she hissed. The car loomed ahead, headlights flickering uneasily. But just when they thought they could escape, a piercing scream shattered the night, silencing everything. Hope dwindled in an instant as icy dread filled Amy's heart. "What was that?" Jake whimpered, looking up at her, eyes bleeding. She realized in that heartbeat of terror, they weren't just running from the campers. They were running from something far darker lurking in the forest itself, a force that demanded its due. Will they reach the car before it's too late, or will they become another whisper lost in the cursed woods? With every frantic step, the earth seemed to tremble beneath their feet. The car's faint glimmer danced just beyond reach, swallowed by an encroaching darkness. Amy's breath came in ragged gasps, but adrenaline surged through her. They had to reach the vehicle, or whatever was out there would erase them. "Don't look back," she urged, feeling the weight of terror pile on her shoulders. "Just keep running." But the scream, sharp and unyielding, echoed in her mind as if it was whispering their names. It filled her ears with the clanging of nails on a chalkboard, reverberating with the undeniable truth. They weren't alone. "Mom," shouted Jake, his voice cracking, tracking fear like a bloodhound. In his gaze, she saw a flicker of the boy who once plucked flowers under a sunny sky, innocent and free. Now the darkness was swallowing that light whole. The shadows morphed around them, restless and alive. Something emerged from the trees, towering above the underbrush, cloaked in shadow but radiating an unsettling energy. Hunched and gaunt, it swayed slightly, like a ragged puppet next to the flickering flames in the distance. "Run!" She screamed, plunging deeper into the night, her heart pounding in her ears, muffling everything else. The car was just ahead. But the laughter crescendoed behind them, more chilling than before, high-pitched and maniacal. It was as if the very essence of the night had conspired against them, each cruel cackle sharpening her nerves. "One more push," Amy urged, pushing her body to move as a primal surge of fear took over. She could see the outline of the car, a last bastion of hope. But there, under the narrow beam of the headlights, something blocked their way. "Mom, wait!" Jake's small voice shattered her breakneck pace as he stumbled beside her. In a frenzied moment, she turned around, just in time to see a figure dart towards them, garbed in torn clothes, skin draped over skeletal limbs. Was it one of the campers? No, their face bore no semblance of humanity. "Mom!" Lily shrieked. The shadows formed tangled images around the figure, unrecognizable faces twisted in pain, their mouths silent, but their eyes screamed. A human trap, ensnared in whatever cursed the woods. Desperation clawed at Amy's throat, demanding a way out.
Get to the car, she yelled, shoving her kids ahead, holding her breath as they rushed toward the metal sanctuary. But as she lunged for the handle, a cold grip locked around her wrist. Join us! It was a whisper filled with despair, twisting her spirit. The grip tightened, twisting as she fought against it. No! Amy shouted, wrenching free with every ounce of strength left. She managed to twist the handle and yank the door open. Get in, now! Jake scrambled into the back seat, while Lily hesitated, staring at the figure still looming nearby, eyes wide with horror. Lily, move! Amy screamed, her heart racing as she propelled herself inside, slamming the door just as a shadow lunged. The car roared to life, headlights illuminating the night, revealing dozens of eyes staring back from the tree line, hungry, greedy. They flitted between the trees, grinning wildly, the twisted campers still dancing, swaying to their unholy rhythm. Without thinking, she slammed the gearshift, heart hammering as she hit the gas. The tires screeched, and the beasts skittered away, barely evaded but breathing down their necks. The road ahead looked dark and uninviting, but there was no turning back now. They were free from the immediate terror, or so they thought. Suddenly, without warning, the lights flickered, failing, plunging them into darkness. Panic rippled through Amy. As night enveloped them, the laughter began anew, echoing louder than ever, whispering their doom. Mom! Jake's voice trembled, thick with dread, and the darkness grew, threatening to swallow them whole. Had they escaped, or had the forest merely released its grip, only to tighten around them once again? What awaited them in the depths of the night? The silence in the car was suffocating.
Only the sound of breathing broke the thick tension, the kids inhaling sharply, each breath laced with panic. Amy's heart raced faster than the car could ever hope to go. The shadows looming outside the windows felt like they were closing in, growing denser with the absence of light. She fumbled with the dimmed dashboard, searching desperately for any sign of life, but the dead glow only echoed her terror. Mom, what's happening? Jake's voice quivered. It was a question that cut deeper than any knife, the truth hanging heavy in the air, a dreadful weight. I don't know, she gasped, her grip tightening on the wheel. Just hold on. The darkness thickened, crawling along the windshield like fingers, and Amy flicked the headlights again, praying they would spring back to life. But when the beams finally illuminated the dark surrounding woods, what appeared refused to bring comfort. The laughing had dimmed, fading into sinister whispering that brushed against their skin, chilling them to the core. Can you see them? Lily's small voice broke through the haze. She peered out her window, hands pressed against the glass, as her innocent eyes searched for confirmation of the horrors they all felt but dared not acknowledge. In dread, Amy turned to glance just outside the car. At the edge of the road, illuminated only by the weak light, twisted shapes hovered among the trees. Faces she recognized from fleeting glimpses, lost lives hiding behind the masks of night. They shifted erratically, gaunt figures whose mouths moved, whispering secrets and promises of despair. Keep looking straight ahead, Amy shouted, slamming her palm against the dashboard in a futile attempt to summon the headlights back to duty. Just don't look. Thunder rumbled in the distance, as if the heavens themselves decided to react to her despair. Suddenly, the lights flickered back, roaring to life for a fleeting moment. The horror converged, and for the briefest time she saw them all. Figures with hollow cheeks and vacant stares, some reaching out as if trying to break free from their ghostly prisons. Go! Go now! With adrenaline pumping, she floored the gas pedal. The tires screeched in protest, throwing mud and gravel in a wild arc as she sped down the road, heart hammering in rhythm with a frantic beat. But then, as she navigated the winding path, the lights began to flicker again. One second, they flooded the trees with blinding brightness. The next, they dimmed to a mere whisper. The darkness regained its grip, swallowing the road whole. No! Please, no! Panic washed over Amy. She slammed the wheel to the right, her vision blurring as the headlights started to fade, illuminating twisted shadows that danced shamelessly along the roadside. It felt as if the woods themselves were laughing, relishing their continued torment. A figure appeared suddenly in the beams, an apparition of despair. A girl, her eyes wide and mouth twisted, mouthing words that never reached her ears, twisting deeper into the trees. It struck Amy like a lightning bolt, a flash of familiarity. The girl looked like her sister, lost for years. "Mom, look out!" Lily screamed as the car veered onto uneven ground. She grabbed the dashboard, fear evident in her wide eyes. "What?" Amy yelped, the wave of impending doom crashing down. She swung her gaze back to the road just in time to see an old tree root lunge upwards, as if reaching to snatch them back into darkness. There was no time to react. The car jolted violently, tires screeching.
They were airborne, floating in that terrifying moment of uncertainty. As gravity pulled them down, a blinding light engulfed them. Time warped, and as the screams filled the air, Amy felt herself slip into the chaos, with the laughter transcending into piercing silence. Then nothing. A moment later, the blare of a cascading horn pulled at the edges of her consciousness, jarring her awake. Disoriented, surrounded by silence, Amy blinked against the brightness suddenly before her. She was alone in the driver's seat, the woods eerily still outside the car. Where were her children? "Jake! Lily!" she screamed as panic clawed at her chest, choking her. Deep down, she felt that laughter return, echoing amongst the trees, a chilling reminder that the darkness was far from finished with them. Had she lost them to the very shadows that hunted them? Or was this merely the beginning? What awaited her when she dared to step outside? The silence wrapped around Amy like a suffocating veil. Each breath she took felt heavier than the last. Desperation clawed at her throat. The voices of her children faded into the shadows, leaving only echoes of fear lingering in the air. "Focus, Amy. Think." She glanced around, her eyes darting to the rearview mirror, but all she could see was darkness. Nothing stirred behind her. Still gripping the steering wheel, she felt like a ghost trapped in her own vehicle, paralyzed with dread. "Jake? Lily?" she called out again, her voice faltering. Was it just her mind playing tricks? Shadows danced at the edges of her vision, twisting into fiends that whispered of torment. The car was still running, but the road was empty, cold in the heavy air. "I need to find them. I need..." Desperation pushed her to the limit. Summoning all strength, she opened the car door, a creak resonating into the stillness. It felt as if the woods inhaled sharply, absorbing her resolve. With shaky legs, she stepped out onto the gravel-strewn road, her feet sinking into the uncertainty of the moment. "Jake, Lily..." Panic spiraled as the chill of the forest wrapped around her, a suffocating shroud. Lurking trees towered like sentinels watching her every move, their gnarled branches twisted, reaching in hungry anticipation.
She stepped away from the car, drawn toward the dark woods where her children's voices last echoed. The ground beneath her crunched, casting echoes into the silence as she took hesitant steps further from what felt like safety. The air became thick with the scent of damp earth, drenched in the musk of decay. The woods whispered secrets she wasn't ready to hear. Then it happened. A faint rustling from the underbrush. Amy froze, her heart leaping wildly in her chest. "Lily? Jake?" She hoped against hope, her voice trembling. But there was no reply, only the rustling growing louder, circling her like a predator, teasing her. Flashes of memories raced through her mind. Jake's laughter, Lily's infectious energy. How could this be happening? Mustering courage, she turned toward the noise, but the forest wore a disguise of silence once more, lingering shadows dodging in the corners of her sight. "Please," she begged the darkness, feeling utterly alone. Just as she was ready to retreat, she saw it, a flicker of light amongst the branches, dancing playfully. Maybe it was a path, a way to find her kids? With quickened breath, she moved toward it, each step echoing with uncertainty. The flickering light grew more pronounced, drawing her deeper into the clutches of the woods. The shadows around her writhed and pulsed as if they were alive, mocking her approach. But then she felt it, a chill running through her veins, an icy touch grazing her back. She whipped around, heart racing. Nothing, just the trees moving slightly, whispers carried on the breeze. There it was again, a soft, lingering laugh, barely discernible but unmistakably real. "Jake?" she called out, voice cracking, desperate. The laughter morphed, shifting into something darker, wrapping around her like a vice. She stumbled backward, heart hammering. The light flickered and dimmed, and for one chilling second she glimpsed a figure, a small silhouette hidden in the gloom, staring at her. "Lily!" she shouted, roiling panic making her choke on the name. But the figure melted away, swallowed whole by the shadows as quickly as it had appeared. Fear consumed her as she spun to flee, but suddenly the laughter erupted again, maniacal and derisive, echoing painfully through the trees. Was it mocking her? Amy raced back to the car, gasping for breath as her legs pumped, but the forest seemed alive, the trees closing in around her, branches snagging at her clothes, grasping at her desperation. The laughter crescendoed, suffocating her sense of direction. And then she saw it, the car. Relief surged through her until she realized its engine had grown quiet. She yanked the door open, the interior bathed in dim light, but something was wrong. Sitting in the back seat, cloaked in shadows, were two figures. "Mom," they whispered, their voices a dissonant echo of a nightmare. "Jake, Lily." But as she called out their names, The smiles that crept upon their faces twisted her heart, sending chills racing down her spine. They were not her children. The woods around her erupted in laughter again, the sinister chorus ringing in her ears, drowning out her sanity. What had she stumbled into? The shadows beckoned her toward a truth that would shatter her world, a horrifying realization waiting just at the edge of light. As dread settled like a chilling fog, she knew she had to confront the darkness. And yet, would she find her children, or something far worse? What awaited her in the depths of the woods? The darkness enveloped Amy as she stumbled backward, the twisted faces in the back seat stealing her breath. Panic clawed at her throat, and she fought the cold dread that gripped her heart. "Get away from them!" she screamed, an agonizing command that felt more like a plea. The shadows around her flickered, echoing her fear in a chorus of derisive laughter. The mimicking voices of her children twisted into something grotesque, a dark parody of love that sent her tumbling into despair. Were they mere reflections of her own swirling madness, or something else, something lurking in the depths, waiting to tear her apart? Desperately, she turned to run from the car, her instincts screaming to escape the oppressive dread. The forest loomed, its branches casting eerie silhouettes as they reached for her. She sprinted deeper, guided by instinct, the laughter trailing her like a hound in relentless pursuit. "Stop!" she cried, her voice echoing through the trees. "Please, just tell me where they are." Each frantic step pushed her will to survive, but the woods seemed to shift, growing darker, more threatening. The ground felt wrong beneath her feet, roots and treacherous vines clawing at her shoes as if the forest sought to claim her. She paused for a heartbeat, panting, straining to decipher the chaotic cacophony of laughter, mixed with the haunting whispers of her children calling her name. It was maddening. A flicker of movement caught her eye. There, off to the right, a brighter patch of moonlight trickled through the canopy. Shimmering like hope, it beckoned her away from the consuming darkness. Summoning every last ounce of courage, she veered toward it. As she approached, the laughter faded into a haunting echo, the trees seeming to part as if granting her passage. The moonlight illuminated a clearing, revealing an ancient stone well at its center. It looked eerily out of place, a relic carved by hands long since forgotten. Heart racing, Amy studied the well. Was this another trap, or could it be a chance to uncover what was happening? A shiver crept down her spine as she approached, the sickly sweet scent of decay wafting up from the depths. She leaned over to peer inside, the shadows swirling like liquid darkness. "Jake! Lily!" she shouted, her voice ringing with desperation as she called into the abyss.
"If you're down there, please respond." Silence met her plea, and for a moment the world held its breath. But then, a soft splashing sound echoed from within the well, followed by a whisper that sent a jolt of icy fear through her. "Mom, come closer. We need you." It was Lily's voice, but warped, distorted. Amy's heart sank as dread coiled in her stomach. This wasn't right. She stepped back, barely able to breathe, the laughter returning, lurking, taunting her once more. Suddenly, a creeping realization gripped her. The well wasn't just a pathway. It was a trap, a way to lure her in, to pull her into the darkness with them. Her children were here, but not the way she wanted them. A fresh wave of sadness washed over her. "Stay away," she yelled, but the allure of the well pulsed like a heartbeat, drawing her in, promising answers. Just as she spun around to flee, the shadows surged forward, their hunger overwhelming, brushing against her skin like frigid hands. Panicking, Amy sprinted toward the tree line, but the darkness was relentless. It grabbed her shoulders, pulling her back, laughter swarming like bees, suffocating any sound she tried to make. "Look at us, Mommy," the figures in the car chimed, their voices mingling eerily with the laughter. "We're waiting, just a little closer." All the while, the well loomed, calling to her even as she ran. The woods around her darkened, branches snatching at her limbs, the air thickening with malevolence. Then she saw it, a flash of white, a small hand amid the chaotic shadows reaching toward her. Her heart surged. Was it real? Could it be? With a renewed sense of urgency, she dove into the neck of the woods, pushing past the barriers. But with each desperate stride, the laughter grew louder, drowning her resolve, obliterating the dim light of hope she grasped tightly. As she barreled deeper into the darkness, both the laughter and the urge to jump into the well intensified, pulling at her sanity. She was losing control, slipping through the cracks of reality into an unfathomable nightmare. How long could she tread water in the sea of terror before everything submerged her completely? And then she crashed into something solid.
A wall. A boundary. Had she reached the end of the woods or the edge of her sanity? But as she braced herself against it, her fingers found a door handle, cold and unyielding. It was a way in, or perhaps a way out. What lay beyond that door? The door creaked open, unleashing a gust of stale air that carried the faint scent of mildew and decay. Amy hesitated for a moment, the shadows still pressing in around her like a tightening noose. She barely had time to breathe before the whisper surged again, an avalanche of sound that claimed her focus. "Mom, don't leave us. Come find us." Lily's voice. It twirled in her mind, beguiling yet sinister. She peered through the door into the darkness beyond, where a dim light flickered, too soft to define a space, yet too real to dismiss.
"Lily?" she breathed, stepping inside. The air was thick and prickled against her skin, raising goosebumps. The moment she crossed the threshold, the laughter faded into an eerie silence, leaving only the thumping of her heart. The room was small, scarcely big enough for a desk and a single chair. Maps littered the floor, each one etched with notes and red circles marking various locations in the forest. As her gaze swept the walls, she felt a shiver race down her spine. Crude drawings smeared in charcoal depicted faces twisted in agony. It was a jarring mural, as if the very walls had absorbed the pain of those who had been here. Then, in the corner of the room, she spotted something glinting. Curious, Amy moved closer, her breath shallow. It was a small, rusted mirror propped against the wall, the glass cracked and clouded. A chill seized her. She didn't want to glimpse her reflection among the shadows. "Mom, please." This time the voice was closer, raw and desperate. The sound originated from behind her, a frantic rustling in the hallway that seemed to echo with fear. Amy turned sharply, her heart racing, pounding like a drum against her chest. "No!" she shouted, but the words felt hollow, as if they were swallowed by the dark. She rushed to the door, her hands trembling. Outside the door stood a figure bathed in darkness, a small silhouette, barely discernible. Fear coursed through her veins. Was it a trick, a shadow masquerading as her child? Lily? Or something worse? Shadows danced around the figure, distorting it, elongating limbs and twisting faces into something grotesque. "Mom," the voice called again, now more insistent, anchored with urgency. "Help me, I'm scared." Amy forced herself to take a step forward. She reached out, her fingers trembling as she dared to touch the figure. It was solid but cold, like ice, like death. Then suddenly there was a sharp pull, and Amy found herself yanked back toward the mirror, as if an unseen force aimed to trap her there. "No," she yelled, panic surging through her while she struggled against the relentless grip. The voice from the darkness morphed into a cacophony of laughter, shrill and mocking. It was them, her children, but twisted now, voices mingling with others, overlapping into a haunting melody that seeped into her thoughts. Each syllable echoed memories, taunting her with the sweetness of simpler times before this horror enveloped them. As tears streamed down her face, she could no longer tell if she was shaking from fear or desperation. Fractured images began to surface in her mind, faces from the maps, places she dared not remember. Was this part of the trap? Were they luring her into a darkness that would consume her whole? With a sudden burst of adrenaline, she screamed, "Get away from me," turning sharply to face the distorted figure as the shadows began to swirl around her, thick and choking. Then she felt it, the cold hand, pulling at her from the depths of the mirror. The clash of despair and hope twisted inside her. "We're not lost, Mommy." What did that mean? Were they near? Or was this the end? Just as she felt herself slipping away, the figure began to dissolve into a haze, laughter echoing into nothingness. With one last desperate glance back, Amy recognized the faces, their lips curled in sinister smiles, eyes hollow of warmth. And then, the world around her started to collapse as the door slammed shut, leaving her alone once more in the room, confronted by the swirling shadows. And a whisper rose above the silence. "Now you're stuck with us." Was this the end of the line, or merely a passage to something worse? The darkness deepened, and the laughter returned, vibrating through the walls. As Amy searched for an exit, another echo caught her ear, a different voice weaving through the chaos. "Help us! They are coming!"
Who was it? もう一つのトリックが待ちいました. The question lingered in the air, heavy as stone, as Amy realized she was standing on the precipice of a terrible truth. What happens next could change everything, or tear her apart. The oppressive darkness wrapped around Amy like a suffocating blanket. Every breath felt like a battle, an act of defiance against the unseen terror lurking in the room. Shadows quivered at the corners of her vision, twisting and reshaping as if alive, waiting for the moment to spring. The voice she had heard moments ago echoed again, clearer this time, desperate, pleading. "Help us!" Amy's pulse quickened. The fear that had settled in her bones was suddenly laced with urgency. It was not just Lily's voice, but something else, an unfamiliar tone tinged with a familiar dread. Where was it coming from? She turned in a slow circle, seeking a source amid the chaos. "Get out!" she shouted into the void, hoping to reclaim some authority in this nightmarish tableau. The walls seemed to pulse at her words, as if the house itself were responding, trembling under the weight of her assertion. The laughter ripped through the silence again, mocking her, filling every space left unoccupied by the dread. The shadows expanded, stretching toward her like skeletal fingers hungry for a prey. Drawing a shaky breath, Amy forced herself toward the nearest map scattered across the floor. Her heart pounded as she scanned the scrawled notes and faded circles, frantically searching for clues. The locations seemed familiar, places she had taken her children before they vanished. A knot tightened in her stomach. Had they left hidden messages for her? Before she could decide if they were breadcrumbs or traps, the mirror caught her eye again, a dark, smudged surface that seemed to beckon her closer. With trepidation, she approached it, almost hypnotized. She could see swirling reflections, images shifting like water under moonlight. Faces stared back at her, distorted, dripping with despair. "Mommy," one of the faces mouthed. Not Lily, but a girl with tangled hair and eyes like hollow wells.
The girl's hands reached out, attempting to escape the mirror, her mouth opening wide in a silent scream. Amy stumbled back, nausea rising in her throat. What was this? Were they trapped there? She'd felt them, their cold fingers, the fear that festered just beneath the surface of the glass. A howl of anguish erupted within her as she forced herself away from the mirror, determined not to succumb to its pull. "Help us! They are coming!" The voice surged again, shaking her to the core. The very air vibrated with the unholy energy of the house, a presence, angry and ancient, pulsating in the shadows. Amy felt its reach tightening around her, a noose drawing ever closer. In a panic, she scrambled to the door, but it wouldn't budge. The wood felt alive beneath her palms, radiating heat mixed with a deep, malevolent chill. "No!" she bellowed, pounding against the door. "Let me out! Please!" The laughter intensified, reverberating through her skull, a cruel symphony that left her breathless. The darkness around her swelled, drawing her focus back to the maps on the ground. One map stayed untouched, revealing a small glimmer of light near the edge, marked with a single word, "Reveal." The rest were chaotic and filled with horrific depictions, but this was different. With determination, Amy snatched up the map, tracing the path leading toward the light with shaking fingers. It was a beacon, perhaps even a way out. But as she read the lines, the shadows began convulsing, coiling around her ankles like serpents, the sinister laughter amplifying into a shriek. "Mommy, hurry! They are coming!" It was Lily's voice, pure and raw with urgency. Heart racing, Amy glanced back at the mirror one last time. The girls were trapped there. They needed her, but at what cost? The whispers grew into a storm, swirling around her ears until she felt they might shatter her mind. Stay, join us, become one, forever. With a fresh surge of courage, she ran for the designated spot on the map, convinced that whatever lay ahead might be her only escape. But as her foot landed, the floor groaned beneath her, and a chilling realization washed over her. The shadows weren't just threats, they were hungry. As she stumbled onward, light flickered ahead. But in that moment, something shifted in the depths of the house, a shifting presence like a predator locking onto its prey. She barely caught a glimpse of movement, shapes forming from the shadows that crowded the edges, a quickness that turned her blood cold. "Help us!" It was a chorus now, rising and falling like the tide, resolute and demanding. What would pierce through that darkness and reveal the hidden secrets? What was waiting for her at the end of the light? As Amy's heart thundered in her chest, the shadows lunged, and she felt herself held in place. The laughter faded, replaced by something else. A low whisper that sent shivers down her spine. echoing the worst fear she had ever known. You can't escape. What could she possibly do now? The path of truth was winding and untrustworthy, and more dangers lurked just beneath the surface. Amy's breath hitched as shadows coiled tighter around her. She pressed the palm of her hand against the map, hoping its light would shield her from the looming darkness. But the darkness had a life of its own, pulsating with energy, like a heartbeat that quickened with each passing moment. "Join us," they crooned, voices slithering through the air, surrounding her, enticing yet laced with malice. A surge of icy dread gripped her stomach. She fought to focus as the flickering light danced ahead, but the shadows lashed out, whipping around her ankles, trying to drag her back into the void. "No, I won't!" Amy screamed, ripping herself away from their grasp. She bolted towards the light, desperate to reach it before whatever hunted her could strike. It flickered like a dying star, threatening to quench under the weight of the encroaching darkness. As she stumbled forward, she felt the ground shift beneath her again. The wooden floorboards creaked warningly, not unlike old bones crying out in pain. She could almost hear them whispering secrets, fragments of the past bleeding into her present. "What happened here?" she gasped, half of her mind racing in fear, the other half yearning for answers. The cries of lost children echoed in her ears, clawing at her sanity. "Where are you, Lily? Please, show me." The map blazed with an intensity that made her squint. The word reveal pulsed, drawing her into its orbit. Just as her fingers brushed against the map, a blinding flash erupted, illuminating the room, pushing back the shadows momentarily. But as quickly as it appeared, the light flickered out, plunging her back into despair. She felt the air shift. The chilling presence was no longer just lurking. It was here, alive and hungry. A low growl resonated from the depths of the house, shaking the walls and jolting her to the core. The word reveal echoed in her mind, demanding action. It was now or never. Fortified by desperation, Amy threw herself forward, grasping the light, heart racing, spiraling towards the uncertain outcome. She stepped into the glowing area marked on the map, expecting salvation, but found herself swallowed by a rush of warmth that tinged with the sensation of being pulled through a veil. Suddenly, she was standing in a glade. The oppressive weight of the house lifted. The air was filled with the sweet scent of pine, and the sun pierced through the treetops. It felt deceptively peaceful, but the tension clung to her skin, a nagging itch. "Mommy, help us," the chorus sang again, echoing through the trees. The plea sent fresh terror coursing through her veins. She could feel the urgency mount, a need to find the source of the voices. Every fiber of her being cried out for movement, to run deeper into the thicket, but an inkling of doubt lingered. What truly awaited her among the trees? As she pushed through the underbrush, the world became labyrinthine, twisting back upon itself. Shapes danced at the edges of her vision, skirting just out of reach. Every time she turned, it was as if the glade shifted, reshaped itself into something unrecognizable. "Mommy, we're here!" The cries grew louder, laced with both fear and hope. Determination ignited within her. She pushed forward, each step heavier, laden with guilt for leaving her children behind in the mirror. But as she raced deeper, a low, ominous growl faded in behind her, the house's wrath following her like a specter, mingled with the whispers of the children. The ground began to shake beneath her feet. Panic surged like an electric current. Would the answers she sought lead to salvation or damnation? Each heartbeat was a countdown. Was she truly alone, or were the children truly there, trapped within the whispers and shadows? In that dizzying moment, a flash of familiar warmth enveloped her. Lily's small hand slipped into hers, almost tangible, but then lost in the storm. Amy gasped, desperately searching for her child's face. But before she could call out her name, darkness erupted again, twisting the light, warping the glade until it felt as if the very forest was alive, intensely watching. "Who are you?" Amy screamed, both dread and fury bundled into each syllable. "Join us! Join us!" The voice coiled around her like a serpent, slipping into her thoughts,
drowning out her screams. Before Amy could make sense of her surroundings, shapes began to morph from the trees, figures shadowed and shifting, midnight-cloaked figures stepping forward. Were they lost souls, or something far more sinister? The air thickened, heavy with impending doom. What were their intentions? What unspeakable fate lay ahead? And then, the shriek of the wind cut through. The forest, ever shifting, screamed for blood. The ground trembled as Amy stood her ground, her heart pounding like a war drum. "Where are my kids?" she shouted, her voice raw with desperation. In response, the figure swirling around her whispered her children's names, their voices deceptively sweet, like honey laced with poison. The woods pulsed with life, shadows darting around her, taunting, teasing, their laughter echoing with a malevolent edge. Desperation surged through her. She couldn't let despair take over again. Gathering every ounce of strength, she pushed forward into the forest, fighting the pull of the insidious whispers. "Come closer, just a little closer." She felt the warmth of her children, or maybe just a memory of it, tugging at her heart. With each step, the darkness thickened, the air grew cold, wrapping around her like chains. But she wouldn't give in. She couldn't. As she moved forward, the wind howled, whipping her hair like a tempest.
A clearing opened up ahead, illuminated by pale, flickering lights that danced like fireflies. "Mommy!" A faint voice, so close yet so far, pierced through the ambient chaos, guiding her through the shrouded haze. "Lily?" The clearing erupted with a burst of light as she stepped inside, revealing a circle of stones etched with ancient symbols. Her breath caught as she saw them, Jake and Lily, standing at the center, their faces pale, eyes wide with terror. Relief and fear collided within her. "I'm here! I'm coming!" But as she lunged, the shadows shifted, closing in, pinning her against the edge of the circle. The ground beneath her blazed like fire, a barrier of light warding off the darkness. Hovering figures filled the air, their murky forms aligning against her, a legion of wretched souls whose voices melded into a chilling chorus. "You are ours. All of you." "Get back!" Amy screamed, her voice carrying an unusual strength. She stepped toward her children, her hands trembling but steady. The shadows recoiled slightly, a wicked flicker of recognition washing over the figures. "Fight!" she urged herself, eyes locked on Jake and Lily, their frightened faces carving into her heart. "Fight for them!" The ground trembled beneath her feet, resonating with the energy of her will. The warmth from the circle enveloped her, filling her with ancient power. "You can't have them!" she cried, her voice rising, filled with a mother's resolve. "You won't take my kids!" The shadows surged forward, but Amy pushed through the light, each step defiant. She reached for her children, intertwining their fingers with hers. "I'm here! We'll escape together!" Lily's small hand clasped tighter around her own, their fingers threading through fear. The energy surged through her body, igniting her resolve. The shadows recoiled again, their forms morphing as if struggling against an unseen barrier. "Join us!" they cried, their voices a chilling blend of distorted laughter and desperate pleas. "No!" Amy shouted back, clinging to her children with everything she had. Drawing upon the love that fueled her spirit, she pushed against the oncoming darkness. "You lost your light long ago. We're going home." With that, the air erupted with blinding light, blaring like thunder through the gloom. The figures screamed, a haunting cry that shook the very trees around them. The darkness writhed, twisting and contorting as Amy and her children stood firm, grounded in that radiant sphere of protection. The light enveloped them, pushing back against the suffocating shadows that threatened to consume their spirits. "Now, run!" she yelled, taking her children's hands, bolting forward through the now fraying darkness. They sprinted toward the edge of the clearing, breaking the perimeter as tendrils of shadow reached out in futile desperation. With one final surge, the darkness collapsed behind them, shattering like fragile glass.
They fled into the welcoming embrace of light beyond the trees, bursting into the open air, the woods now ominously silent. The sinuous whispers and laughter faded, dissolving into the past. As they stumbled onto the final stretch of road, they didn't stop until the specter of Autumn Grove faded behind them, forever buried under the weight of what it had tried to drag them into. "Are we safe?" Jake asked, breathless and wide-eyed. "Yeah," Amy whispered, pulling both children close, thankful for their warmth, for their lives. "We're home." Though the weight of the forest loomed in her memory, gnawing at the edges of her consciousness, they were free, no longer lost to the shadows, and together they would carry the light forward. Later that evening, as the sun set and everything settled into a distant memory, Amy tucked Jake and Lily into bed, grasping their hands tightly. She didn't want to let go. They had faced the darkness, and no matter what haunted her, Amy knew one thing for sure. Love was the ultimate conqueror. "Good night, my brave ones," she whispered as they drifted off, and she found peace in knowing she would never let shadows come between them again. Amy smiled, determined to heal from the night's horrors. Tomorrow they would reclaim their story, together, a saga of triumph over torment. And somewhere deep within the woods, the spirits of Autumn Grove retreated further into the shadows, waiting for their next opportunity. But Amy would be ready.